The Valve Steam Deck. This thing by here has been a literal game changer for me. And basically, now that I got it, I don't know how I coped without the thing. This thing has completely transformed how I have done gaming. Like, honestly, this has become my main gaming device over my PlayStation, my Xbox, or even my main gaming PC rig. And the reason for that? It's one of the most convenient devices I have ever had. Now, kind of similar to the Nintendo Switch in a way, it's a portable form factor, and even though it is a great deal larger than the Nintendo Switch, the things I can do with this kind of surpass the Nintendo Switch in a lot of ways. But this isn't a Switch comparison video, this is just a general Steam Deck video, so without any further ado, let's begin. So what is the Steam Deck? Well, essentially it is Steam from, the PC client with all those thousands upon thousands of games available to you and those absolute crazy game sales, all condensed into a controllable, a console-like user interface basically, and slapped into a handheld form factor. And generally, it can play the vast majority of games that I throw at it, no problems whatsoever. Some games 60 FPS, some games I have to lock at 30, but for the most part, it runs basically everything I've thrown at it, with some exceptions here and there, which I'll get into later on. But generally, it is not a console. But it's not a PC either. And this is where the trickery comes in, because this is kind of the first of its kind. It's a hybrid device. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a consoleized PC. So basically, what is it, ladies and gentlemen? Well, essentially, it's an Arch Linux distribution, but with a specific gaming mode that runs on like this compositor called GameScope. Essentially, it just 100% turns into a console when it's in this gaming mode. But if you want to switch over to a desktop mode and use it as like an actual full-blown desktop computer, well, I got news for you, because you can. This thing is literal magic, essentially. Like, you can use it either as a Linux computer or use it as a console. And generally, in terms of system-wide features as well, this thing has some fantastic features. So it supports the likes of upscaling tools, for example. So you can use your typical bilinear, linear scaling, all those type of usual suspects whenever you're playing a game at lower than 720p resolution, which is essentially the baseline resolution of this device, or 800p if you're in handheld mode. But if you want to play a game that's a little bit too tough, and you can lower the resolution, and then you could use one of these scaling modes, such as AMD FSR, to upscale it back. And having FSR system-wide is quite literally really, really cool. Essentially, you can play Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, plop it down to a ridiculously low resolution, and then upscale it back up using FSR, and it will look damn good, to be honest. Now, usually myself personally, I don't bother with FSR. I usually use just the basic scaling because it works good enough for me. I don't mind it being a little extra blurry, but it's great that the option's there. And I think the big thing about this device is, while it is essentially a console with a PC mode, and the PC stuff is kind of locked down because it has an immutable file system, so if you can't exactly go into the terminal and install a bunch of Linux packages, for example, unless you turned off that feature, but each time the OS gets updated, those Linux packages will be removed. But there's workarounds for basically everything. This is one of the most open gaming systems I think I've ever had. Like, if I want to do something on the Steam Deck, I can do it. If I want to use Windows instead, nothing's stopping me. I can quite happily install Windows on it easily. Have I done that? No. But I like the fact that the option's there. And I think that's probably one of the biggest strengths of the Steam Deck. If something doesn't work, sometimes there's a workaround. Basically, it's the benefits of a console combined with the benefits of a PC. That's the best way I can really demonstrate this device. Think of the Nintendo Switch, but not locked down. and you have this. And the best thing about it means, well, you don't have to exactly hack the firmware. It's open by default. You don't have to do anything special. It's great. But how is the game compatibility, you might be wondering? Well, any of you who are watching this video right now, you're going to be seeing gameplay clips throughout. Every bit of gameplay you're about to see, or have seen so far, has been taken directly from the deck, because I got it hooked up via a dock, which you can buy separately, which essentially turn it into like a proper system. You can just plug it into a monitor at that point. But game performance overall has been exceptional. Now, don't get me wrong, you're not going to be picking up, say, let's think of a recent game. You're not going to pick up, say, Arkham Origins. No, Arkham Origins. What's the new one? You're not going to be picking up, say, Gotham Knight, for example, and playing that at 4K 60. I mean, even the newest of the top-end GPUs can't seem to do that, apparently, because from everything I've heard about Gotham Knights, I haven't played it myself, but everything I heard about that game, it's basically a fucking mess. And that's what I'm putting as kindly. Like, if you want to play Gotham Knights on the Steam Deck, I hear just don't even bother. It's useless on the Steam Deck. But apart from stuff like that, you know, for the most part, everything from the last generation and before will work for the most part if it's compatible. And the big caveat with this thing is the if it's compatible tag I just gave. Because everything on here, being on Linux, runs through a compatibility layer called Proton. And because it's not native running a lot of these games, you know, like you would be on Windows, some of the games may not work like you intend. Fortunately, Valve is to the rescue, sort of, with their verification system. And to tell you the truth, the verification system is a bit, shit. I don't want to mince words about it. So, essentially, each of these games have a green tick box, and orangey, amber, I forgot the color, exclamation mark, or just a cross, essentially, to mark whether the game is verified, which means it should work perfectly, playable, which means it'll work with some minor tweaks here and then, you diddle some small bug, or unsupported, which means the game doesn't work. Now, here's where the thing gets a little bit funky. Some verified games I've had problems with. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's one game that's marked as playable, Psychonauts. That game's endlessly given me problems on Linux. It's not just the Steam Deck, it's every Linux distro I've ever played that game on. It's given me shit. But unsupported, well, this is where the weird things happen. Because plenty of unsupported games just work. So usually, when I'm using games and I'm looking for games to buy or play on the Steam Deck, I ignore Valve's verification system and I just go to ProtonDB instead and I look up what's written there. And if there's any extra steps required to get the games to run, usually someone will have written them down to be like, okay, so you need this specific version of Proton to run this game. So I can just go to the settings, mark it, boom. I can get a game running, no problem. And again, that's one of the greatest strengths about this device is, like, if something doesn't work, more often than not, there's actually a workaround. It's not always the case, so the biggest Achilles heel this thing has right now, the biggest problem, is multiplayer. And it's not to say multiplayer is shit when it works, because it's not. Multiplayer on this thing works flawlessly when it works. The issue is anti-cheats. Because a lot of anti-cheats, I don't want to say anti-cheat developers, but a lot of people who integrate certain anti-cheats into their games don't tend to have Linux support. So a lot of multiplayer games, you're just not going to be playing on the Steam Deck, and that's the biggest problem with it right now. A big example right now for me is Dragon Ball The Breakers, and that's a game I really like, and a game that I thought, hey, this would be perfect to have on the Steam Deck. And when you play the game on the Steam Deck, it runs flawlessly. But you can't actually play the game in multiplayer. You can only play the tutorial on the Steam Deck, because the anti-cheat goes up, something's not right here, up, get him off, and it'll kick you off, which is a smidge annoying. What can I tell ya? What can I tell ya? Outside of that, though, game compatibility is surprisingly high, and honestly, it's getting better every single day that the Steam Deck is out. And this thing has been updated countless times. It's going to be updated again countless more. The Valve Steam Deck is constantly getting updates, and what may not work today may work tomorrow. It's kind of the crazy thing about it, you know? But on the other hand, games that also work today might not work tomorrow, and that's where that's another problem, because game developers kind of need to take into account the Steam Deck. Otherwise, you can have issues like from what I've heard, is going on with EA games right now, where a couple of EA games have just been broken, because EA has been forcing their new app. Don't know why the fuck they need a new app anyway. I don't even know why they need an app anyway. It's on Steam. But there's another argument to be made. EA. I don't like launchers. But basically, EA has apparently broken a couple of their games on the Steam Deck unless you do some kind of wacky workaround to log in on a separate computer or device. Purely because they updated their games to use the EA app instead of Origin. And it's like, stuff like that can happen. It is a problem. Is it a common problem? Not really. But it is a problem. And I think it will remain a problem until the Steam Deck gets itself into more hands. And from what I've heard, it's probably likely it will, because the Steam Deck is selling like hotcakes. And it's no wonder either. Like, the value for money on this thing is crazy. Like, this is a £300 full-blown gaming computer. And again, you're not going to be playing anything at like 1080p plus unless it's older. But using the default resolutions of 720p or 800p, yeah, for the most part, you're going to be playing basically everything. But all in all, that's my general thoughts on the Steam Deck. It's been literally a game changer. Like, I've seen people on Reddit even do like crazy things. You can change the boot videos on it. I've seen some people online who just replace their main computers and use the Steam Deck as their daily driver computer. Because, even though, like I mentioned earlier on, you have the whole issues where the file system is locked down in desktop mode, you still can install applications through the likes of the Discover Store. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're doing anything specialist, so if, say you need the Adobe Suite for whatever, you're not getting the Adobe Suite working on this. It's just, that's not happening. But if you want to use any other free and open source editing software for image or video editing, well, you can clearly use the Steam Deck for it, because you can just download something on the Discover Store that exists on the desktop. And yeah, it works a treat. Overall, experience with the Steam Deck has been nothing but game-changing. I can't go back. This thing has become a main device for use, you know, and again, I've been quite honest, it's not a perfect device. There are some major problems with it, but value for the money, oh, there is nothing like it. And I haven't even spoke about emulation. Jesus Christ, the emulation potential of the Steam Deck is through the roof. Because, oh, this thing has enough power packed into it that emulators, it just eats through them. So you want to play anything retro, all the way up to the GameCube, Steam Deck's got you covered. Outright got you covered. It's so good. Now, GameCube and Wii, I think there are some performance quirks with certain games there. So they're on the upper echelon of things. But even like PS3 emulation works remarkably well. I was playing Toy Story 3 on the Steam Deck the other day, no problem, through the PS3 emulator. So yeah, it's one of those things, you know, where emulation, for the most part, it depends on the emulator how well the emulation is going to do, and it depends on the game you're playing, but essentially everything up until GameCube era works flawlessly, and from GameCube era upwards, it's case by case, but for the most part, most games work. Like, if you're like me and you're a Sonic fan, well, there's some good news there, because basically they all work. And I will be doing a follow-up video shortly after Sonic Frontiers comes out to show the Sonic stuff on the Steam Deck in particular, just to be like, hey, if you're a Sonic fan, this thing could actually be the ultimate Sonic the Hedgehog game system. But I'm getting ahead of myself for now. With that, I'm going to leave it here because I've rambled enough. Essentially, Steam Deck, I bloody love it. And I heavily recommend it. Unfortunately, the only place you can buy it right now is directly from Valve themselves. But that means, because right now, basically, they've sold so many of them, they had a reservation queue that just ended. So you can basically get one within 1 to 2 weeks, easily. So yeah, if you want one of these things, and I do recommend it if you're looking for a gaming device, go to the Steam website, type in Steam Deck, give it a cheeky download, because this device is, it's basically changed. It's changed everything for me, you know. It's been such a convenience. But with that, I'm gonna call it here. So thank you all for watching. Hope you guys all enjoyed, and I hope this gives you a decent idea of what the Steam Deck is like. I know it's been very rambly, but you know, it is what it is. And yeah, I shall hopefully catch you all again. Thanks for watching. See you after. Bye.